All right, Derek, thanks a lot. In Money Tuesday today, good debt versus bad debt. Which is which? Financial analyst Stewart Welch joins us to talk a little bit about it. It's good to see you as always.
Good morning, Rick.
Now, okay, you touch on this a lot. You say be debt-free, but you also say, well, be smart with your debt because there are some forms of debt not as bad for you in the long run as others. Let's talk a little bit about when we talk about bad debt, first thing I think of is credit card debt.
Yeah, credit card debt. I think in a broader sense, bad debt is borrowing money for anything that's going to decline in value. So, for example, a great example is borrowing money to go on a vacation. When the vacation's over, it's gone, it's done, and now you've got to pay for it over a long period of time, and a lot of times you're paying a lot of interest on it.
And you say it's kind of like that when you go into cars as well. I mean, folks will say, well, I need the car, I need to get a new car, but you say, be smart about what kind of debt you go into for a car.
Well, I think a car is kind of a little bit of a special problem because everybody has to have, or most people certainly around here have to have transportation, and it's very expensive, so it's hard to save up enough money to pay cash. But what people will do, the mistake they make is they'll borrow money for a really expensive car and pay it over, say, 5 years, when a much smarter way to do it would be to buy say a used car and finance it over 2 years and then continue to keep that car for, say, 3 or 4 more years and continue to save money so that they have the money to pay cash for the next one, and they can break that cycle of what we call bad debt.
Okay, we talk about the bad debt. That's the kind of debt that you say lower it and try to remove it from your bottom line as soon as possible.
That's exactly right.
Good debt. Let's talk about this.
Well, good debt would be debt to borrowing money to buy a house. That would be borrowing money to buy something that we would anticipate would appreciate in value. Now, there's been a question about.
There's been last few years have been a little bit of a.
And it is kind of crazy. The real estate thing has been very crazy. But what I would say is that don't give up on real estate. Housing market is going to come back. Owning a house is going to be a good strategy, a good financial strategy, and I think it's a perfect example of good debt.
Okay, so those are a couple of different ways of looking at it. You say when it's always a good thing. You always preach to folks when they say, okay, here's my bottom line. Here's what I make. Here's what I owe. All this. You always say, look to that point where you owe. Try to get that lower and lower because that all of a sudden creates that money, that cash flow for you.
I'll tell you what. If you ever get debt free, it is the most liberating feeling you'll ever have. So it's really a great, great concept and something to work toward.
All right, Stewart Welch, always good to see you, pal. Thanks so much for being with us today.